Anxiety is our sensei, and we are the senpai. We at Anxious Humor do not have degrees in psychology or counseling. Everything you hear is purely opinion-based. If you are suffering from any chronic mental illness, we strongly urge you to seek professional help. And hey, thanks for listening. Is your anxiety predicting the next natural disaster? Hello, and welcome to Anxious Humor. Good evening, anxious people.
This episode, we're going to discuss experiences not only with anxiety, but with bouts of psychosis and depression. We're going to be interviewing Courtney Diles. She's a paranormal romance novelist and editor, and she's thinking about a career change into the mental health field.
Hello.
Hey, Courtney.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good.
Okay, Courtney. So we're just going to jump on into the questions we have to ask you. So, what are some of the mental disorders that you suffer from?
This might be kind of a long answer because I want to break it down a little bit. There are 4 parts to my diagnosis. There's major depression, which I see as the big main monster because it's the one that could kill me.
Mm-hmm.
Then generalized anxiety, which means anxiety about everything. And then borderline traits, which borderline personality disorder is sort of the label they slap on you if you self-harm. The really fun part is I have psychotic features, which I always feel the need to clarify that psychosis just means that your perception of reality is off enough that it affects the way you behave. It doesn't have anything to do with violence. So major depression and generalized anxiety with borderline traits and psychotic features is my official diagnosis. My actual diagnosis might be different because my psychiatrist is more worried about covering all the bases than actually labeling me. So it's possible that I could have bipolar and she just prescribes me an antipsychotic that also doubles as a mood stabilizer to cover that base.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I am with that.
If you don't mind me asking, what are the antipsychotics and mood stabilizers that you're on?
The one that doubles as both is Abilify in a high dose. Mm-hmm. Abilify is an antipsychotic that boosts antidepressants in low doses, and in high doses it also acts as a mood stabilizer. I'm also on Wellbutrin, which is an antidepressant, anti-anxiety that you take in the morning and it gives you energy, which is why I love it. Better than a cup of coffee for me.
Yeah.
And then I'm on Trintellix, which is a newer SSRI that tends to work when other SSRIs don't. So it's sort of my miracle medication. It's very expensive, but it makes me functional. And then I'm also on naltrexone, which is normally prescribed for opioid addictions, but I take it for self-harm compulsions, which is a new thing. So that's everything I'm taking.
Okay. Would you want to add anything to that, Rihanna?
Like what?
Anything?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you meant that you knew I had something to say. No, I do not. Okay. How do you feel about taking medication? I guess what I'm asking is some people are super against medication and are all about natural health. What is kind of your viewpoint on that?
I think medications can be very necessary, and in my case, they have saved my life time and time again. I know it's also my own willpower that saves my life time and time again, but I give the medications a lot of credit too. I know that for some people, certain medications will make them numb. I have never gotten that. I've either experienced a greater range of emotion than I should be experiencing on medication or a more normal range, which means it's working. The only medication that I could not stay on longer than a week was Remeron, and that was because it was downright sedating me. I was sleeping constantly, but others just only worked for a little while or didn't work at all.
I've kind of had that experience with medication. When I switched to Prozac, I felt myself being too happy, and then the next moment falling down into that pit, and that's why I had to switch back to Paxil, which originally I had switched off of Paxil because it was making me sleep a lot because I was taking next to the highest dosage, it was about 40 milligrams. So I tried to switch off, but it was not happening. I eventually switched back to Paxil, but now I'm on a lower dose. And I don't think necessarily it's my miracle drug. I don't think I've found that yet, but I think I'm getting there.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you start seeing a shrink?
Well, when I think the term shrink, I think of some kind of therapist, whether it's a licensed clinical social worker or a psychologist or just a counselor.
Right.
Then the psychiatrist is something different, right?
Right, yeah.
So I started seeing a therapist when I was in high school, when I was going through drama with friends, and it was making me cry all the time. And then that one didn't help me very much. I stopped seeing her after maybe a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to college, and about a year into college, a bunch of stuff blew up. I broke my feet, both of them at the same time, jogging. Yeah, and there was a death in my friend circle. So about a year into college, I started seeing a therapist again. And then I stopped seeing a therapist when I entered my adult life. I graduated from college and tried to get through it without any medication or therapy at all. And that did not go well. I ended up very suicidal and cutting for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to see a shrink 3 different times.
Yeah.
I feel that I probably should have seen a psychiatrist during college. Actually, I had a bout of psychosis during college and I had to drop out for the semester. I actually went into like a really prolonged state of depersonalization, which was really scary for both me and Michael.
Oh, wow.
That kind of, it kind of ended up with me going, I did admit myself. They didn't keep me.
Yeah, it was like a few hours and they were like,
you're just having psychosis. But I also think that they weren't taking me very seriously because it seemed to get better at night. But like during the daytime, it was at its worst.
Yeah.
Which is strange because you would think bad things happen at night. Good things happen during the day.
Yeah.
I think I really need to see either a therapist or a psychiatrist, preferably a therapist, to work out exactly what happened, because I still have some sort of trauma from that, and it's kind of evident. Yeah, it's kind of evident like whenever I'm really panicky or when I'm feeling weird, because I immediately, and Michael can vouch for this, like immediately I'm like, I think I'm going to depersonalize.
Yeah. But I think that's just that feeling being associated with anxiety, like the depersonalization kind of like threw your anxiety for a loop, and your anxiety kind of triggered it.
Right. But that's pretty common for like panic attacks, though, because a lot of people experience depersonalization during panic attacks for, like 10 minutes or so. But it was like months for me, and I never saw a health professional, primarily because I didn't have health insurance. But now that I do, I'm trying to seek out someone to like explain and walk through that, like what happened to me, because I still don't know.
Wow. Could you define depersonalization for me? Is that kind of like dissociation where you feel like you're outside of your body?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they kind of go hand in hand. Some people call it derealization/depersonalization/ disassociation. For me, it was more like I was living in a movie, and yeah, it's so strange, and I find it's really hard to accurately describe. Sometimes when I see scenes in movies, I'll point them out to like Michael or someone who doesn't know like what that was like for me, like couldn't feel that. I'm like, that's similar to what I felt. But I can only describe it in pictures because I just don't think words do enough. I was numb, like my body was numb. My brain just went down into shutdown mode, and it was protecting me. And part of me thinks that abrupt switch to Prozac almost caused that.
Yeah.
Because that's when I started. It was right before I started taking. No, it was right after.
It was after the switch, and you were taking antibiotics.
It was an antibiotic that I didn't want to take.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry you went through that.
It's all right.
We kind of got it in check for the most part.
Yeah, we do. I came out of it. I eventually did come out of it. I still think it's there, but I think my mind has learned to cope with it, so I don't notice it anymore. I don't think I ever like really came out of that. And that's why sometimes I notice it when I'm really anxious.
Wow.
But anyway, enough about me.
I read through some of your Facebook posts a while back about your anxiety and depression, and you said that going to see a shrink for you didn't necessarily help you as much.
the shrink I saw in high school just didn't really understand, and I didn't feel like I could open up to her. At this point, I was very deep into my psychosis, and I was terrified that either a psychologist or a psychiatrist or somebody was going to not believe me.
Been there.
And so that's why that didn't work out. I also had a therapist in college who I had to just kind of dump because I felt like she was threatening me. I was experiencing suicidal thoughts for the first time, and I had just gone to an emergency room, and they let me go. And then I saw her, and she said something like, unless you promise me you're not going to hurt yourself, I cannot let you leave this room. And that's not something you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Oh my God.
I think she was just personally too invested in me. She was scared for me. And I think she would have let me leave the room, but she would have put me in a hospital if I hadn't lied and said I'm totally safe.
Yeah.
And I did turn out to be safe, so it wasn't a complete lie, but I did not feel as safe as I ended up having to tell her I felt. And because she put me in that situation, I just got a different therapist.
There's a health professional out there for everyone.
Yeah.
That's kind of a journey kind of thing. Like, you might have to go through a series of 5 or 6 therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, or whatever, to find the person who's right for you, like who clicks with you.
Yeah.
Because a podcast that I listen to, you might listen to, it's My Favorite Murder.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I'm like a true crime addict. Surprisingly, like a true crime addict with anxiety. Probably not the best combination, but it works.
That's for sure.
She had her therapist that she was really attached to recently pass away, and she expressed that, you know, she'd never connected with someone like that, and it really helped her. And she was really, really upset about it, because now she has to find someone who worked as well with her, who clicked as well.
I forgot to say this when I introduced myself, but I actually volunteer for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And one of the things we always say when somebody is reluctant to get therapy is that it's like trying on a new pair of shoes. When you go to a shoe store and you try to find a new pair of shoes, you're probably going to have to try on several pairs before you find one that fits perfectly.
That's a really good comparison, actually.
Yeah.
I like that.
But I wouldn't think about that with like therapists or anything like that. You don't really think about a connection at first, like going into it.
You probably just assume that, like, oh, they have a degree, they're gonna help me. But that's not the case.
Now, what helped you overcome your anxiety?
Well, when you say overcome, it almost sounds like cure, and I'm not sure that that's a fair expectation to put on people.
Cope. I guess that's a better word.
Okay. Yeah, cope is a better way to put it. There are the basics, you know, exercise, breathing exercises, mindfulness, that kind of thing. But what's really helped me lately is learning the different cognitive distortions, like emotional reasoning and catastrophizing.
Oh, yeah.
Those sorts of things. So I can just label it when I'm doing one of those things. Like I'm blaming somebody and that's not fair, or I'm turning something into a catastrophe that doesn't need to be turned into a catastrophe. I'm, you know, driving down to Louisville and I'm just certain I'm going to fall off the bridge and that's catastrophizing. That sort of thing. Just being able to label it and know that there's an inaccuracy there.
Yeah.
That I don't need to be as anxious as I am. That helps. And then I forget what these are actually called, but there are these exercises I do with my therapist. I call them reality check sheets, where she goes through a list of questions about how is this belief healthy? Is it accurate? Is it helping me? Is it harming me? And how is it doing those things? And really breaks down whether a belief is something I need to be holding or something I need to let go of. And then one thing that helps me with anxiety, a good example of this was yesterday. Yesterday was actually my first day back on the crisis line after a 3-month break. And I was super, super nervous, and I just took a chance and jumped in with both feet. And my first call was it went fine. And that put my mind at ease so much. So sometimes just taking a chance and facing a fear will help.
Okay, yeah. I definitely agree with that. Now, how long have you? I can't remember if you had answered this already, but how long have you been with the crisis prevention hotline?
Just since March, so almost a year.
Almost a year. Okay. Has that helped you at all with your illnesses as well?
It helps me in a few different ways. It gives me a sense of purpose. I'm able to take my horrible suicidal experiences and put them to use to empathize with these people who are going through this and provide help that somebody who doesn't understand as well might not be able to provide. So it helps me unlock that potential, and that goes a long way toward making me feel like this is worth it.
Okay, well, that's cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's actually pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I went through electroconvulsive therapy.
What led you to try that out?
Well, what actually happened was I was at a writers' conference and somebody was talking about depression and writing, and they recommended iboga therapy.
What's a pagoda?
Iboga is a drug that's not legal in the United States. You can go to Mexico or Canada and go to a clinic, and they will induce a hallucinogenic experience that's supposed to be like 10 years of therapy crammed into one night. And I was so excited about this. I was like, this sounds like magic. I was kind of dumb. And my family talked me into trying an alternative therapy that was actually legal in the United States before I went and galloped off to Canada.
Yeah.
So that's how that came about. And it was actually kind of terrifying because of the portrayals of ECT in the media.
Can you give us an example?
I went to see the movie Suicide Squad right before I was supposed to go in. Like, it was in the plan that I was going to get my brain fried. And I saw Suicide Squad, and the Joker performs, this is a spoiler, but the Joker performs ECT on Harley Quinn while she is awake. And this is what apparently turns her into a bad guy. So I freaked out there in the theater and had to have people calm me down. I've heard of people actually like waking up during ECT and feeling it and being on the muscle relaxer so that they cannot say anything, which is terrifying. But that did not happen to me.
So you're asleep while they do it?
Huh?
Sorry, you're asleep while they do it?
Yes. You go through anesthesia and a muscle relaxer, and the reason they give you a muscle relaxer is because it actually induces a seizure, so you don't actually thrash around during the seizure.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so it was basically being prepped for surgery, 16 times, I think, 15 times?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I was going under anesthesia over and over again over a period of like a month, like 3 times a week for a month. And it seemed to be working. And I went through a whole week where I didn't have any suicidal thoughts, and I was feeling good. I was functioning. We'd gone through all of this. I was working, and then a week later, I was crying on the kitchen floor again. And we decided, if it's going to wear off that fast, my options were either to go and get ECT every week for the rest of my life, or to just consider it a failure.
Yeah.
I chose to consider it a failure. Now, the most important thing I can say about ECT, though, is that you will lose memories, and there will be memories you don't get back. I don't remember being told that my memories would not come back. I don't think I would have done it if I had been told that. But I lost most of a year of my life. There are times when people tell me, oh, you've been here before, and I don't remember it at all. There are people on my Facebook and in my phone whose names are really familiar, but I don't know how I know them or who they are. There are things like we went to a family reunion, and my husband was talking about how we went to the same reunion in the same place last year. I don't remember it at all.
Mm-hmm.
There were people who came to visit us who I don't remember being there. And there are TV shows that the characters are familiar, but I don't remember anything about the plot. So I lost at least half a year, probably more like a whole year.
I'm so sorry about that.
That's rough stuff.
Thank you.
Like, say that you're in a situation where you do feel that this seems really familiar, but I don't remember this at all. Kind of like a deja vu situation. Does that make you anxious? Do you get anxiety about that? Like, do you worry about the memories you've lost?
A little bit, but for the most part, it's hard to feel the sense of loss because I don't know exactly what I've lost, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
It makes me more indignant than anything because I really don't think I was told that was going to happen. And I can't prove that.
Right.
And even if I tried to take it to court, they would say, well, how do you know what you were told when you can't remember?
And there goes the victim blaming.
Yeah. So I guess it just pisses me off more than anything.
Rightly so. I'm frustrated for you. That's hella frustrating.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to leave the phone number for the crisis hotline for any of our listeners, that would be great.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that is 1-800-273-8255. That's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
Awesome. And now where can people check out your book?
Oh, if you go to Amazon and look up The Pain Eater, it's got a reddish cover and it's by Courtney Diles.
Well, we'll talk to you again some other time, Courtney. We appreciate you coming on and talking with us about some unfortunate but interesting things. There's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, for real.
Okay, that would be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Just a friendly reminder, our next couple episodes will be released weekly. Once we switch to bi-weekly, we'll give everybody a heads up. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to an episode of Anxious Humor. This episode was produced by Michael Harkins. The voices of Anxious Humor are Michael and Rihanna Harkins. You can subscribe to our mailing list and find more information on the podcast at www.anxioushumor.com.
Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app, and make sure you're following us on all of our social media for all the updates in the future.
If you'd like to talk with us about your darkest fears and anxieties, give us a call at 864-719-2205.